Tony glared at Guy. What are you doing here? I came with Mark. Why? Guy swallowed. To help him with whatever there was to do over here. Tony stared at him a moment in silence. Then he rattled the sketchbook pages in his fist and demanded, How much do you know about all this? Everything, said Guy. So you're playing Sherlock too? Is that it? Guy was silent. I asked, Tony, what's wrong? He whirled on me. Shut up, okay? Look, Guy ventured, if you'd just tell us what's going on, we might be able to help. Help? Tony threw back his head and laughed bitterly. Don't you get it? Don't you see how you shafted me? We haven't done anything to shaft you. I spoke in a level and friendly a voice as I could. Tony's eyes bored into mine. Then suddenly his voice became crisp. Okay, let's take it from another direction. He glanced out the window toward the hamlet. I saw the cops at Craiglander's store. What's happening? Somebody wrote occult graffiti on his store, the guy said. Tony shook his head. Tell me if, Let me tell you the truth about what's happening over there. He tossed the sketchbook pages on the floor. Craiglander's telling the sheriff about me. That's what's happening. Somehow you guys figured out that I got mixed up in that rock throwing thing a year ago. Don't deny it, he said threateningly. You wrote it out all neatly and tidy in your little tablet here, right in among all your stupid little drawings, right? We nodded. And you thought I was the one who was involved in this garbage that's been happening at the Hamlet, right? I shrugged. It could be a lot of people. Tony stepped toward us menacingly. We retreated. Back door's got a big cupboard up against it, he growls savagely. You're in here until I say you can go. I happen to know that Jean Horton went to the mall with my sister. They won't be back until 12:30 or 1. Tony, shut up, he barked. Remember that morning we were all over there painting Pretty Polly's Pantry or whatever it's called? Remember that? We nodded. Remember, and he glared at me, how you laid your tablet down beside your buddy's backpack and then went around the corner to paint? Well, I came along and picked up that tablet and flipped through it. I knew there was something funny about it ever since that day at church when you wouldn't let me look at it. He glanced out the window in the direction of the hamlet. Cops are still here. His voice was tense. But they don't know I'm here. And what should I find in that tablet? He continued. But the whole story about how Craiglander told you and Red about the rock throwing thing. But back then I didn't know it was you, I said. I just wrote it down the way I do other events of the day. Liar. He moved toward me and raised his fist. Listen, punk. I've got nothing to lose. Nothing at all. If they find me, they're going to lock me up for that Hamlet stuff. And I'll be locked up just as tight, whether or not I break your jaw. So just behave. I was going to let the whole thing drop, he went on. You didn't write in your tablet how you found out, so I figured maybe it was just a wild guess. I didn't think for a minute that you were going to do anything with it. But then I noticed that Bob Craiglander can't look me in the eye anymore. He was my best buddy when we were painting at Polly's Pantry, but not anymore. No way. I come over to his store and try to get on his good side, and he suddenly has to make a phone call or something. And Wentworth, too. Just like that. I come to ask her about the night security job, and she chills me out. And suddenly, he said, shooting me a look of pure hatred. Suddenly I put two and two together. You narked on me. You went to Craiglander and Wentworth and spilled your guts. I began to shake my head. Don't waggle your face at me, he barked. So then I figured it's time to have another little talk. I come into your mother's store and see your tablet lying there by the cash register. His voice rose in angry frustration. And if I were a real bad guy, I would have opened her till and grabbed some of her 20s in the right hand compartment. And your precious mother would have been out a whole week's cash. But I didn't, see? I could have done it, but I didn't. Listen, Guy pleaded. So my plan is to rip out your tablet pages and put a little healthy fear into you, right? So I did that. I saw you climbing into that bus one time, and so I got myself an Allen wrench to open the door. I wrote you a note on the tablet and put it on the seat. He glanced out the window again and announced in a voice of deadly calm, "The cop car is gone. We don't have much time. Who all did you tell your stories to?" "Nobody." "Don't lie to me." "I swear it. Nobody at all." "Then how did you find out?" "Tony, Mr. Craiglander was the man who saw you throwing rocks." Tony backed off like he'd been punched in the stomach. "Liar!" "It's true," I said. "He used to live down near where your dad's apartment was. He was driving on the freeway that night. He saw a rock come down and just missed another car, and he took the first exit and drove back to where your Datsun was parked. He got its number. But he never came to testify. He was called to testify at your committee hearing at the bank, but at the last minute you confessed." Tony seemed to be trying to clear cobwebs from his head. "So once Craiglander found out who I was, he told Wentworth." "Right. We overheard them in Mother Brown's." "This better all be true, buddy." "It is." "And who," asked Tony, "do you think is really behind all this Hamlet stuff?" "I don't know," I said. "There's nothing anybody can prove." "They don't need proof," Tony said, and for the first time his voice sounded panicky rather than murderous. "They can shaft you just as well without it. The stupid committee sentenced me to clean porta-potty toilets and freeway rest stops for 100 hours last year, and I don't drop a rock larger than the size of a marble. The other guy dropped the heavy ones. And there's another thing." He pointed to the poster Sheila had made about Mrs. Horton's purse. "See that?" We nodded. "Well, look at this." He gestured toward a table beside a tall white cupboard. I blinked. On the table, in plain view, was the stolen purse Guy and I had found in the upstairs passageway. "How did you find that?" asked Guy. Tony scowled. "What are you talking about? It was right here on the table." "But is that the purse this poster's talking about?" he demanded. We nodded. "Then who's trying to frame who?" he snarled. "If Horton's got her purse back, how come the Hamlet's still plastered with posters?" "We found it over the weekend," I said. "Upstairs in a passageway in the men's clothing room." "Does Red know?" I shook my head no. "Mrs. Horton's keeping quiet about it." Why didn't you tell Red?" "We haven't had a chance to," Guy said. "Well, I'm going to," Tony snapped. "I'm going to jail for something I didn't do." He picked up the purse and put it into the cupboard. "Anyway, I've got to get the key to this place back to Red's room. She doesn't know I've got it." He stared at us. "I'm giving you back your tablet pages." But if I get mixed up in this, I'll know who to come looking for. One of my friends' sentence is up a couple of Thursdays from now, and he'd be glad to do me a favor. He walked over to the sketchbook pages lying on the floor. He wiped his feet on them a few times, then he kicked them and they fluttered in my direction. Now get out,